Hello and welcome to another Privateers Volley. We're going to continue our series today on culture wars. And today we're going to talk about handlers are everywhere. And by the end of this, it's going to be perfectly clear where I'm coming from, what I'm talking about, what I mean by handlers are everywhere. It's bigger and actually worse than you think it is. The entire Babylonian system has been set up literally to be not just gatekeepers but handlers, and that really messes with a Christian worldview. We'll talk more about it right after this. Hello, welcome everybody to the Privateers Volley. My name is Rick, and I'm better known as C2K Rick, because I'm the host of the C2K Report on terrestrial radio stations in Texas, Revelation Radio, and also on the OG shakeandawakeradio.com. So we're all over the place, but this channel is a separate thing, and I'm doing it for a very specific reason. I really want to get the word out about what's really going on. We get distracted by all kinds of things in the world that we live in, and we fail to really pinpoint and see what is wrong with the particular system that's been set up in our faces. And rather than evaluating the system itself, we pinpoint little nuances within the system that we see as wrong, but don't overall look at the system and pinpoint the problem with the system itself. So I am continuing the battle a little cold, so please forgive me when I have to cough. Would you do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't? This channel, I really would like to grow it, especially to a point where I could attract some more conversations with some of the other podcasters out there, so we could have meaningful discussions about these kind of things, because I don't think that this perspective and this message is out there at all, because I've been looking. And I don't seem to see it out there at all. So without any further ado, let's jump right in to this to this particular subject. So handlers are everywhere. What do I mean by handlers? First and foremost, well, handlers are put into your life in order to distract you, or to keep you guided in a particular direction for the interest of someone, something other than your own self-interest, or the interest that actually originated on earth, and that is the kingdom interest. Okay, so that's what handlers do. And there is a serious conspiracy going on in the world. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. There is actually conspiracies. You can open the Bible from front cover to back cover, and you'll see that there are conspiracies everywhere. Last time I unintentionally talked about the book of Ruth as being a book that had a lot of conspiracy in it. That is incorrect. That was unfactual. I meant to say Esther. The story of Esther is clearly a massive conspiracy against the people to literally eliminate them. So the fact that we've had conspiracies before, definitely suggests that there still are conspiracies. And the handler conspiracy is certainly one of them. So as we continue to talk about this culture war, we really have to have a conversation about handlers, okay? And they are everywhere. So let's talk about some of the different kinds of handlers that are out there, and then I'm going to define handlers in a very specific way, or define the term liberty in a very specific way. So let's talk about the kinds of handlers that are out there, and the various ways in which we get handled on a day-to-day basis and don't even know it. Sometimes we don't even know it. Pay for play. That's one. You know, a lot of times, and what I mean by pay for play is like when you have a handler or you have an agent out there in the system that is allowing you to benefit from the system, but you have to pay them, or you have to pay a regulatory price, or you have to, get a license, that kind of thing, in order to be able to participate in the system or even get into the gate. The problem isn't the fee. The problem is that now that you've paid that price, and now that you've actually obtained that license, you've had to agree to certain terms and conditions, and those terms and conditions are usually applicable within a subset of law. Now, the kind of law I'm talking about isn't actually law. It's just a contract. It's terms and conditions of a contract. It's usually with a state, a municipality. It's usually with somebody who is licensing you to do something that otherwise would be unlawful, or illegal for you to do, not unlawful. Because the truth of the matter is, all these things I'm about to list out, all these different kinds of handlers that I want to list out, all of them can be done outside of the system because we have a right to survive. I mean, can anybody challenge that? We have a right to survive. We have the right to be able to make a living. These are rights. And there are very minimum things that as a society we have to contribute to. Sure, roads, right? Sure, jails. Sure, a military. Okay, there are very few things, just a handful of things that we have to contribute to. Do we have to contribute to education? No, because if you're not going to use it, if you have your own educational apparatus, why would you need to support an educational apparatus that's going to literally counteract yours, right? There are dozens. Medical systems. Do we have to really support medical systems? No, because we just saw what happened a few years ago when we tilted all the way over to one side and nobody with a contrary opinion was allowed to speak. Okay, so it's pretty obvious that there are just very few things, and with just a very small tariff, a very small fee for every individual who lives in a particular land, you can cover those things. It would not take very much to do it when you're talking about 300 million people, or however many people there are today within the United States of America. So not a big cost to that. Where the cost comes in, and where where we start to meet resistance and an actual conspiracy to guide people into areas that are not conducive to the kingdom of God, I'm getting into those areas. And pay for play is the first one. So you're talking about any kind of licensure that you have to get in order to practice something, because the fact of the matter is, there have been ways for us to learn from others who are good at doing it for a long time. And a free market is a free market. So if you have Johnny, who's the best surgical doctor in the world, teaching Freddie how to do what he's been doing for literally decades, and he signs off and says, hey, you know what? Freddie's good. And he puts the word out there that Freddie is good, creates some kind of an entity that he calls, Jasper's Hospital. Okay. So Jasper's Hospital, he literally signs off on these people and says, yeah, these people are all good at what I do, so you can trust them. So then if people come in and they start to experience good things, well, we know we can trust Freddie. But if Freddie starts to botch one after another, after those people have literally consented, hey, come and help, please help me. Yes, I will, if it doesn't work, I understand, it's a risk that I'm taking, because everything is about risk. You can create a system like that. It doesn't have to be one that's bureaucratically, with tape everywhere, that you have to cross this line and that line and pay this fee and that fee and obey these particular regulations that a lot of times have nothing to do with benefiting people. Okay. So, so pay for play kind of schemes. That's one. Another one is agents for work. If you're in Hollywood and you can't get any work without an agent, because an agent is how Hollywood works. You go through the agent to get the job. Well, there's all kinds of things that happen there too, and that can happen there too. There's favoritism, improper nepotism. And by the way, I want to make it very clear, nepotism is biblical. We would not have a God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob if nepotism wasn't biblical. Okay? You would have to say, okay, well, yeah, he was Abraham's God, but not Isaac's, because Isaac got a little off the rails. No. The reason why you can say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is because nepotism is the thing. It was handed down. It was a mantle handed down from generation to generation to generation. The promise that God made to Abraham was also the promise that God made to Isaac, and was also the promise that God made to Jacob, who was the fulfillment of that promise. Okay, through his sons and his grandsons. So, want to make it very clear, all right, that when I'm talking about Hollywood agency, I'm talking about the bad kind of nepotism, the kind of nepotism where it's not spiritually grounded. It doesn't have any kind of repercussion to it. It's just a natural, hey, because you're of this bloodline, boom, you're in. I think we went through kings. Well, they're false kings, because if you've ever listened to me before, I explained to you that Jesus was the last king. Nobody after that had the divine right. There was no divine right of kingship. There was no divine sovereigns after Jesus, okay? All those people were operating in improper governance, period. Okay? But, you see what I'm saying. Also, not just work, but there's not just Hollywood, but there's other industries where you have to have agents to really get in. Think about, a lot of the labor force where there's all these unions. And there's a lot of people that will defend unions to the death. But I've never been able to convince myself to join a union, even when I was in a workplace that literally pasted my face on the wall on posters with a big clown nose saying freeloader, 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 because I was unwilling to pay the price to be a member of a union, because I recognized that while there might have been some financial benefit, which, by the way, is the problem, it's inequitable to have a union that provides financial benefit above and beyond that which others within that same construct that are outside of the union can also get. So it's a very interesting, inequitable type of situation, and And equity, by the way, is not a bad word. Don't we want equity? Equity is actually something that you want. It's actually something that, God promotes equity. I'm not talking about the kind of equity that they talk about in DEI. Okay, DEI kind of equity is a whole different kind of equity. They're looking for, unmerited equity, and that's ridiculous. But equity within merit actually works. But there's other industries out there that are very difficult to position yourself in without agents, and by obtaining the agency, and I'm even talking about attorneys and lawyers. By obtaining them, you're actually changing your capacity. You're actually creating a capacity that is outside of the realm of liberty. You can't have liberty and have an attorney, because you're having to participate within one designated area of statutory construct, because that is heavily regulated. Okay, so and I'm not saying that there's things wrong with being regulated, because God regulates us. We have literally 10 tenets that we cannot cross, right? Like 10 commandments. Pretty simple stuff. It's not complicated, but there are things that we can't do. Liberty is not a free-for-all. It's not freedom. Freedom is do what thou wilt. I feel like doing this today. I feel like, spitting on that guy tomorrow and shooting that guy, the day after. That's freedom, and that's unobtainable. It's inequitable, and it's horrible. Okay? Nobody really wants freedom. Freedom is a bad thing. Okay? Freedom is chaos. Freedom is unlimited. Liberty is limited. Let me define liberty within the construct of handlers. Okay, liberty is the freedom from the interest of handlers. In other words, the total free reign of the interest of handlers, because the whole problem with handlers is that handlers are really all about some interest foreign to you. That's the reason why you're having to use the handler in order to get into that business, is for you to be controlled. And remember what I talked about last time. Control and interest is everything. Control and interest is everything. Anything outside of the control and interest of he who you serve is foreign to that control and interest. And that can be a very dangerous thing. Let me continue going down this list to give you more examples of handlers that exist in our society today. Spouses. Did you know it was a very popular method throughout what we would call the Middle Ages, where people were married off into other families, and it wasn't just for financial or asset purposes in order to maintain the status of the family and that kind of thing. There was also a control aspect in play that actually kept the interest of the family in a place that was a higher quality of interest than another family. That was kind of the game of war that was being played long ago, one family against another. How did you rise to a particular status or a particular power, a particular capacity? You did so through marriage a lot of the time. So spouses are actually a form of agency and a form of handlers. The scriptures tell us to be equally yoked. So if you're somebody who's Christ-centered, who's kingdom-centric, and your wife is not, or vice versa, you're actually in a handled situation. Because when push comes to shove, you will not see eye to eye, and there will be disagreement. And disagreement, at a high percentage, leads to court. And when you go to court in the Babylonian system, in a system that seeks to control you and take and have interest over you, that leads to bad things. It just leads to bad things. So spouses. So we need to be really careful about how we do the spousal thing. We need to be really careful and really high thinking when it comes to discovering who our children are going to marry. When it comes to discovering if you have a spouse that passes away, who you're going to remarry. All those kind of things. Or if you're today listening to this program and you're single and you're looking for a spouse, be very cautious that spouse has very equal footing with you and they're equally yoked to you, as if you're tied to a mill and you're each, a buffalo, say. You're two buffalo tied to a mill. If you're not equally yoked, one is going to outdo the other, and it's going to cause injury to the other who's not taking the lead. It's a very precise science of grinding grain with beast. If you have them just out of sync, you can have a very, very catastrophic thing happen. So you're going to want to be very careful with that. That's another way that this society handles us, is through our spouses. Regulations. Regulators of all kinds. I don't really care what faction you're talking about. Everything is controlled. Every entity that is a registered entity of the United States today is heavily, heavily, heavily controlled by some gatekeeper industry. If it's real estate, they have their own real estate agencies that make regulations for real estate agents and propose them to Congress, and they get passed that way. Or else there's a sub-layer of congressional oversight that actually makes quote-unquote law for real estate. And this is in every area. This happens in Hollywood for entertainment. This happens in, even if you're a garage band and you have the thought that one day you're going to make it big, when you sign that first record deal, you're going to find out that there are agencies who control that. There are agencies that control every aspect of your life. That is how the Babylonian system has literally taken over. And the reason why we have to come out to really truly have liberty. So regulative things. And the insurance industry is full of regulative committees and subcommittees and so on and so forth that make rules, policies for themselves. It is quite the adventure. I already mentioned licensure, but to go into that a little bit further, think about the fact that these roads that you're building, you have no choice. If you're going to pay for petrol and you're going to put it in your automobile, you're paying for the roads. It's a direct tax. You're paying for the roads directly through the petrol that you're putting in your car. Every time you have your wheels changed and you have a wheel tax, you're paying for the roads and the maintenance of the roads in order for you to be able to use the road. So you're already being taxed. Why then must you submit further through licensing, registration, all those kind of things? Well, they claim it's for safety. We want to know who the people are, who own it, so on and so forth. Do you know that would be such an easy thing to do by just keeping your records? If you own, let's just go through this. You go to a car lot. Every car on the lot has a VIN number. The VIN number is literally on the document that you get from them. Every car, every company who sells cars, trucks, automobiles, whatever, could literally have a paper, not structured through government regulation like it is now, but they could literally have a paper like an MSO, like an MCO, manufacturer's certificate of origin or manufacturer's statement of origin, whichever way you want to state it, that literally tell you what the vital statistics of that particular automobile are. And they do. They all have access to that. They can take that document. They can give you a certified copy of it. They could give you the original if you're buying it, completely. If you're not buying it completely, if you're getting it through a loan, if you're getting a bank loan, because just these days, those things are so outrageously expensive, you just about have to have a bank loan to do it. So if you're going to go through a bank, they can give you a certified copy of it. They can give the original to the bank, but they can give you a certified copy of it, so you have all the information needed about that automobile, that pickup, that whatever it is, whatever that thing is, for you to be able to prove in the event of some kind of a catastrophe or something stolen or whatever, you have the title, you have the interest, you have the certified copy of the thing in your hand, and you could prove what it is. I mean, we do the same thing with birth certificates. Why don't we have to, register our birth certificate with every little thing that we do? I mean, we have to turn it in and show it as evidence, but we're not actually paying to register it. Why not? That's what we're doing with a car. We're having to register it into a particular county or into a particular state. Why? For what purpose? You have the evidence right there. You can provide that evidence at the moment that it's needed. So it's not really needed. It's just another way of control, another way of gaining interest over people who are willing to give up that interest. So there is no real reason for it. Licensing is a little bit of a different situation, but still not needed. Because, look, accidents happen all the time. But if you were to cause an accident and it was clear that you didn't know how to operate the vehicle, the automobile, hey, you better go back and learn some more, because this is going to cost you a lot, because now you're really going to be behind the eight ball as far as helping the other person make it up in life. But you know what bails you out there? Insurance. Insurance bails you out. So you don't really have to take as much accountability, because the insurance company is taking that accountability. So every piece of this puzzle is complicated by another piece, where we could just be people who pay for a road, allowed to use the road because we pay for the road, we maintain the road, because every time we put petrol in our tank, guess what? We're paying for the road. Instead of being people just allowed to do so, and then we have to be liable for the damages that we do to others. So we have to figure out a way to be able to save up in case that rainy day, and put that on us. Why not? Right? Why not? I mean, if you don't mess up our financial world by causing money to be worthless, there'd be a lot more power to our money, and we'd have to save a lot less in order to make up for a mistake that we make. But you've complicated everything, so now it makes the most sense to people. Hey, let's get insurance. Let's do this. Let's do that. It only makes sense within a system where there is no money, which is what we find ourselves in now. We have debt instruments that we're using for money, lowering the value of the money there is no money, but lowering the value of the stuff that we use for money. So now getting insurance and having all these liability protections make a lot more sense within this framework. Well, we shouldn't have any of that framework. And without any of that framework, we should be able to, help somebody that we injure a lot quicker. I mean, imagine the Good Samaritan in the world that we live in today. You run across somebody who's beat up on the road. You pick them up. You take them somewhere, help them to recover. Could that even happen in our society today? Or would somebody just say, hey, phone 911, call them, hey, 911, there's this guy over here, okay. And then all of a sudden now the system takes over and they benefit from every piece. That person probably goes to jail too because, the case of the Good Samaritan, here's a guy who's basically a vagabond. He's just going to go through the system and they're going to benefit through bonds and through all kinds of things. So we have this system that we've completely made up that benefits not you ever. It benefits the system itself. So that's just an example. I took it to the extreme, but an example of why even licensing is a handler. And here's probably the most popular handler of all. Ready for this one? Taxes. Taxes are handlers. A lot of people I've heard say that taxation is theft. Well, it's not really theft, it's handling. Because you know what they're actually doing when they tax you? And I'm talking about first income tax, okay? Because it's directly taken out of your paycheck before you even ever get paid. That's the first fruits. Biblically, the first fruits are the fruits that you give to the Lord, and then He blesses it. So they're basically robbing your blessing. By taking the first fruits, you have no longer access to your first fruits, so you have no access to the blessing. It's just a preposterous thing. And people don't understand that taxation from the level that it's at today is actually, prohibiting you from walking in the blessing of the Lord. It just really is. That's why our taxation system in America is supposed to be volunteer. It's not volunteer from the angle of you never have to be taxed, because there are things that you legitimately need to be taxed for. And those things that we legitimately need to be taxed for can be just a flat annual tax that will, cover the essential things that we must have, like a military, right? Well, not roads, because we have things that pay for that, but there are just a few things that I talked about at the beginning of the program that you actually need funding for. And those things can be funded very, very easily, very, very quickly, and very cheaply. Every person can contribute basically a head tax that would cover everything needed. And the rest of it covered through tariffs. I mean, that's the way that it was done in the beginning of the United States of America. It should still be done that way, but no, we've created this behemoth that needs to be fed constantly taxes in order to be able to benefit the systems that it's created in order to benefit itself. It's a mess. It's a mess, but taxes are another gatekeeper. They're another handler. And you're being handled daily in so many ways. This is why we are instructing people to come out of Babylon. Here on the Privateers Volley and on other channels like the C2K report, we're constantly telling people, come out of Babylon. It's the only way. You have every right in the world to sustain your family. And that means you got to do more than just go out and pick fruits and vegetables off of the tree and, come inside and eat them. Okay, great. You're not hungry. But how are you going to pay the energy bill? How are you going to pay the water bill? How are you going to pay the sewer bill? How are you going to pay, right? How are you going to pay these utility bills? Well, utility bills are something Again, that could be little to nothing if we organized our townships correctly. Did you know if you had a sports team in your town that that you supported, and there'd be a record of your support, we could literally, excuse me, pay all the utilities for every individual in every town through sports teams. The sports teams could make a fair wage. The members of the sport teams can make a fair wage. You can enjoy an entertainment product. You can support your local economy and pay every cent of utility in every city across America through sports leagues. Just that simple. If every town in America had a baseball team, that baseball team traveled to other towns and played each other, and you would, follow the team around, and or just go to the home games even, and the other, when they're away, the other team would come to their home games and sell it out. Do you know that you could literally pay for all of it? You could pay not only for the people, because there's also refreshments and all kinds of things that support the actual infrastructure. Okay, those things support the infrastructure, and they take care of it in a very easy fashion. If you had that kind of support, 3 sports teams in every town. Basketball, easy to put together a basketball team. You don't need that many people. Easy to put together a baseball team. You don't need a ton of people there either. Football team, a little bit more complicated, but you could put together a field hockey team. You could put together a soccer team. There are many different ways in which you could, through partnership with businesses, and through sales of tickets and sales of accommodations and sales of refreshments and all those kinds of things, you could literally fund not just the team at a fair wage, but you could actually support. Everybody in town would not have to pay a single dime of their utility. That's totally possible. I've done the math. Yet, where have you ever heard this? Have you ever heard anybody say that other than me? Am I the only person that has ever said that? If you take the entire income of the Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City is a big city. There's a lot of people there. But nobody would have to pay a utility bill ever. And you could give everybody on the Kansas City Chiefs a fair wage, $80,000 to $100,000 a year. That's a pretty fair wage. Not a lot of businesses, not a lot of people. Most of the people don't average that. Now, I know what you're saying. I've heard people, Rick, the average NFL career is only 3 years. That's yeah, but with the kind of depending on what kind of education that you give to those people could take that wage that they make. They could support their house. They could support their family, and they could go and they can, and once their NFL career is over, they have the ability to expand into other things. There is unlimited concepts that you could put together here. There's just an unlimited concept, but but nobody's going to talk about that. Nobody's going to talk about that. You know why? Because the love of money. That's why nobody's going to talk about it. The love of money. Make as much as you can make. Yeah, man, I support people to make as much as they can possibly make. I don't support go make as much as you can make, because if you go make as much as you can make, and you keep pressuring, and you go on strike because we're only making 100,000, we want 200,000. Look at how much money you're making. Well, yeah, if an owner of a franchise is making hand over fist millions or even billions of dollars, and they're only paying you, 100,000 a player, you could look at that as I'm being robbed. But if you look, but if the whole nature of the beast is to pay the citizens that live there back some kind of a dividend that pays for all their utilities, hello? Is there a greater benefit? Or are we that greedy that, hey, I have to make it because, look, hey, I'm the one on the field playing. I'm the one out there doing it. Well, you're doing it, yes, but the reason you're doing it is because we gave you the opportunity. We gave you a great job for 3 years. And some of them go a lot longer than 3 years. Some shorter. But there is a system by which you could do that. And it would benefit every single person in that town. And I'm going to guarantee you that the affections of the people will be influenced. And you will be more of a superhero in the minds of the citizenship that you're supporting than you ever have been. More support from your community than you could ever imagine getting when you're in that type of situation and you have a plethora of opportunities and you're young enough to do them. So, with that said, where I want to go from here in perhaps the next episode, I'm not sure what the next episode's going to be yet, but I'm working on a few things. But let's talk about how inequitable it is, how unproportionate it is, the number of Talmudic or Kabbalah worshiping people are engaged in the handling of everybody in America. I think it's fascinating how a particular people of a particular mindset gravitate to a level of agency that can literally influence an entire nation to go in a particular direction. It's fascinating to me, and I want to explore that more next time we get together. But for now, I want to remind you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We have so much more to talk about, and I want to bring some other people in to have this conversation with me. But I need your help to get this word out to the masses of the people who have our particular mindset, and from there, maybe we could grow to a level where we can have that conversation in a more fun and appropriate way. With that said, hit the like button, subscribe, pass it on to your friend, and remember, everything we do here at Privateers Volley, it's all about the blood.